We are back for UFC Vegas 96. This fight card did take a little while to come together because we had to wait for the Ultimate Fighter, all the fights to be announced there, as well as a few replacement fights. So we're going to go over every fight in detail. We're going to break this down, make our picks and predictions for every single fight on the card, and we will start right now. I will see you guys in the first fight. Flyweights next as Victoria Leonardo takes on the debuting Cong Wang, and Cong Wang is 5-0 in her career, but she does have a professional kickboxing background. She, still new to the MMA thing, but she's looked pretty good so far. She's competed in various martial arts, not just kickboxing. So there is that to go off of. It's not just like she's just started fighting. It's just she's now into mixed martial arts. Now, for Victoria Leonardo, she's 2-3 in her last 5 fights, but she's lost to some of the better competition in the division. So you can only so much hold that against her, but, she hasn't looked the best in some of her wins either. She said to come from behind. She's tough. Until she's not. Obviously, she's been finished, I believe, in all 5 of her losses, but she does have quite a bit of durability, but there's only so much a person can take. So either way, when we break this down, for Victoria Leonardo, she's just pretty good at pretty much everything, right? She's just pretty good. She's got decent striking, decent forward pressure, the volume's pretty good, basic combinations on the feet, decent grappling, her cage push. This is probably her best bet to win this fight is get a lot of cage push time, and she does have decent takedowns as well. The reason I say that is because the cage push is something that's specific to mixed martial arts. You don't get cage push in kickboxing. You don't get cage push in sanda. You don't get cage push in wrestling. You don't get cage push in anything else. The cage is only specific to mixed martial arts, and even more so specific to mixed martial arts that operates in a cage, because some of them, they do fight in a ring still. So for me, the cage push is going to be her best weapon just because it's something that she's had a lot more experience with as opposed to the 5-0 Cong Wang. So for me, if Victoria Leonardo is going to win, cage push all night, make it really boring. That's my opinion. On the other side, Cong Wang, solid striker. She's got very good combinations, and she cuts off the cage really well. Now, she does have flaws in her game, but a lot of them only stand out after she's beating on her opponent pretty well. So we're going to take that into account too. Good power. I like that she uses the side kick to control her range. Her legs don't seem very long, which is kind of odd. She has more of like a longer torso and shorter legs, but her kicks are still be longer than her punches, and she'll use that side kick to kind of work as like not really a jab, but more of like keep her opponent back if she wants to keep them at range, which I think will be useful for her so she doesn't get stuck in the cage push from Leonardo. So use that for the range control. But when she gets to where she's looking comfortable, she'll start keeping these hands a little lower and just kind of just bombing on people and just doing what she needs to do and whatever. So, that could be a problem. I don't think Victoria Leonardo is the type of person that's going to be able to knock her out with one shot or anything. But it's still just like a red flag for her moving forward, just to get a little bit too comfortable in there. For this fight, I don't think it's going to be an issue. Decent grappling. If she gets on top, her ground and pound's pretty gosh darn good. She has decent takedown defense, and a lot of it's just because she's tough and strong. So she has these slams and tosses that she was doing to a few of her opponents on the regional scene, where they would come in and try to get a hold of her for a takedown, and she would just throw them, just like they were not even the same size, like she was throwing somebody that was 40 pounds less than her or something. She would just kind of throw them on the ground. It's wild. Or you're tossing a bag of oats or something. It's wild. She would just toss her opponents like they didn't really belong there. It's strange. She's very strong. Let's put it that way. But Victoria Leonardo's pretty strong too, so I don't know that she's gonna be able to do that to her. I think her best bet is to keep it in the striking. And I think she can do that. I think in the striking, she's probably going to get it done. So we're going to go with Cong Wang here. I think she's probably going to go to 6-0. Victoria Leonardo, although a good test for someone who is only 5-0 at this stage in her career. I do like the matchmaking here, believe it or not. But yeah, Cong Wang probably gets it done. Let me know what you guys think. Bantamweights here. Josiane Nunes takes on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. And guys, the marker's looking a little rough here, so we're going to have to switch markers after this fight. And that gives me a perfect opportunity to thank the channel members. You channel members, the money that you put towards the channel membership at $2.99 a month, that goes right to buying things like markers, buying things like light bulbs that illuminate this area, things like that. The spray that keeps the board looking clean. For a while there, it was looking a little rough around the edges. See how clean this looks? I mean, right now we're partway through a fight card, but it looks a lot cleaner than it did for a bit there. So you channel members, the money that you put towards that, that's what you're helping out with, directly affecting those purchases there. So thank you guys. Let's break this fight down. I just wanted to highlight you guys for a moment there. 4-1 in the last 5 for both of these ladies. The biggest difference in the metrics is the height and reach, mostly the height, because the reach, I mean, Cavalcanti is 5'8" with a 70-inch reach, so she's got like a 5'10" reach, whereas Nunes is 5'2", which is quite a bit shorter than the 5'8". I believe that's 6 inches if you're doing the math there. But she's got a 67-inch reach, so she does have a decently long wingspan, something to someone that's 5'7". But then again, the height plays a bigger role than people think. The reach isn't all that it's cracked up to be if the height is that much different. So keep that in mind. But that is the biggest difference here, is the height and reach advantage for Cavalcanti as far as the numbers are concerned. Because both of these ladies, like I said, they're both 4-1 in their last 5. Cavalcanti's only had 7 pro fights. We got 12 over for Nunes. So neither of them are just super long into their careers. But, you know, it is what it is. When we look at Cavalcanti, good striker. She's got a decent amount of power, but not like put your lights out power. Nothing like Nunes, but she does have decent power. Good combinations. The kicks are pretty good, and I think that's going to be a big weapon for her here because, like I said, she's a taller fighter. And if she can mix in those teeps like she's done before, that's going to be something that'll keep a person like Nunes away. And I'll kind of cover it a little bit more when I'm talking about Nunes, but I think that teeps in this matchup are going to be her best friend. Good leg kick as well, and she's got good lateral movement. That's supposed to be an L, not like a V. I think I just wrote it weird, but lateral movement. It's lateral movement, all right? That was weird. But in the grappling, we haven't really seen a ton out of her. Like I said, she has 7 pro fights. Her ground and pound looks good, but she's not really looking to offensively wrestle. Who knows if she's good at it, but if she does, this fight might be a good one for that. But, you know, Nunes really isn't a grappler whatsoever, which is, you know, something you wouldn't expect from somebody with the last name Nunes, but it is the truth. Like I said, the teep kick is going to be her best friend in this fight if I'm reading this right. On the other side, Nunes, good striker as well. She's got a lot of power. Her power striking is going to be her best weapon here because she hits pretty dang hard for somebody that's only 5'2". She's got good volume, pretty good leg kick, actually really good leg kick. When she starts landing those things, those hurt. She does close the distance with these big wild overhands, and that's good, but it's also bad because she needs a better way to close distance against somebody that's going to work the teep. The reason why. You go to swing a big wild overhand, and teep kick comes up the middle. You don't get the distance closed. You're screwed. So for her here, if she's going to try and use this as her method to close the distance, I think she's going to run into a lot of teep kicks and just get kind of stuck on the spear right there, and she's not going to be able to close that distance. In the takedown defense, you know, she lost a fight to Chelsea Chandler because she can't defend a takedown, and Chelsea Chandler's not any good. So I can't pick anybody that lost to Chelsea Chandler at this point. That's just ridiculous. So we're going to go with Jacqueline Cavalcanti, mostly because I think she's going to land those teep kicks, keep it at range, and I think she's going to have the better jab, the better teep kick, the better range and lateral movement. Lateral movement. Sorry, I don't know. Maybe it's a little better. I'm dumb. Either way, Cavalcanti is going to be able to stay on the outside and use her range, and she's going to win this fight, is from my opinion. So let me know what you think. Contender Series vets next. Zach Reese takes on Jose Medina. Interesting fight, and that's the best description for it because we're at 185 pounds. Medina at 205 was on the Contender Series and was a punching bag with 0 offense. Still gets the contract. Here he is. He's 4-1 in his last 5, though, because those 4 wins are over guys that are just not good at all. But the one, that was the Contender Series fight where he was a punching bag for 3 rounds and just survived. And Dana White liked that he was a zombie. Zach Reese, 4-1 in his last 5, only 1 loss. I don't want to say fluky, but kind of fluky a little. Locked up a triangle, got slammed, just out cold, which is not a good look. But at the same time, I mean, I don't think that Jose Medina is going to be slamming Zach Reese out of a triangle. So there's that. When we look at this fight, we're going to start with Zach Reese. The dude is a very fast starter, good striker, mixes up his strikes extremely well with his punches and kicks, things like that. And dude, this guy's got power. This guy can hit like a truck. Everybody was talking about, oh, new gloves this, oh, new gloves that. And then all of a sudden, crickets after Zach Reese goes out there and just starches his last opponent. New gloves be damned, right? So Zach Reese, tons of power. Good wrestling, powerful slams. He's got heavy ground and pound. He's going to attack subs off the back or on top. He looks for the finish. This guy is a finisher entirely. He wants to get this done in the first round, not paid by the hour. That's what he wants to do. He's going against a guy who literally got the contract for just being as durable as you can get. And maybe that draws this fight past the first round. Jose Medina. I'm really reaching here. He's a decent striker. Basically a decent striker by regional scene standards, not UFC standards, but we're going to give it to him. decent boxing combos. I will give him that. He does do a lot of boxing sparring, things like that. So his boxing isn't horrible, but the dude's durable. Dude's tougher than an old leather boot. So decent grappling as well. His ground and pound's pretty good if he can get on top, but this is against bums. And he's got pretty good elbows from that. But like I said, we're reaching here. You have to take Zach Reese. Anybody picking Jose Medina is just hoping that Zach Reese gets tired of hitting this guy and falls over. And I understand it. He could do that, but I just don't think he's going to. I think Zach Reese knocks him out in the first round because I think this guy hits a whole lot harder than the guy that Jose Medina fought on the Contender Series. But I think Zach Reese has some serious power. If he goes to the mat, I think he can sub Jose Medina because I don't think Jose Medina's grappling's all that good. I think it's just he's got good ground and pound because he's, an aggressive dude that hits hard. But I don't think he's skilled on the mat like Zach Reese. I think Zach Reese should win this fight pretty easily. We're taking Zach Reese. Let me know what you think. A couple of strikers in the lightweight division next. James Llontop takes on Viacheslav Borshchev. Borshchev, abysmal in his last 5 fights. 1-3 and a draw. That is not good. But the guy has shown in the past that he has skills. But man, is he on a rough run. On the other hand, James Llontop, 4-1 in his last 5. However, looked great in his last fight until he didn't. Started out looking fine, looking like he was just going out there to crush this guy, and then that's it, goes to the ground and just done. So both guys have clear grappling holes. That we found out. Makes me think this is going to be a striking matchup. Now let's break this down from that standpoint. So records, there's a little more of a caveat to that. First off, these have been in the UFC. The one has been in the UFC for Llontop. So keep that in mind. Now, when we look at Llontop here, he's a good striker with good boxing combinations. The dude's got great cardio too, so he can keep doing this for an entire fight for 3 rounds. He can work the body really well, mixes in the knees, and he uses his leg kick well, but he uses it to set up the body kick, and that body kick is dirty. So for James Llontop, his striking is very good. Grappling, offensively, he can push against the cage and land some elbows pretty well. So yes, that's still a grappling thing. And if he follows you to the mat, his ground and pound's pretty good and he makes every shot count. It's just when he has to grapple defensively that he has problems. On the other hand, Viacheslav Borshchev, this dude is a high-level striker. He's fantastic on the feet. But if he doesn't have to worry about takedowns, because his takedown defense sucks, if he doesn't have to worry about takedowns, he's going to do a lot better. He does work back to his feet if he's taken down typically, except for if he's fighting Chase Hooper, because Chase Hooper's an animal. But either way, he typically is trying to work back to his feet because all he needs to do is stop takedowns, get back to his feet, and strike. And usually he's going to win fights against guys like that. But the thing is, probably isn't defending a lot of takedowns here. Now, maybe Llontop mixes one in. Maybe he starts doing the cage push thing, and I think that would be successful for him. But if this stays at range, Viacheslav Borshchev has nasty kicks, super, super heavy power, works the body extremely well, and he puts together punches and kicks in his combinations absolutely clean as they can get. The guy looks fantastic, but the problem is his durability is starting to fade. It's not quite bad yet, but we've seen him get rocked and wobbled a whole lot more lately. And even Chase Hooper was able to do that. And now I understand that you're like, but Hooper's a grappler or whatever. But he's also a big dude. And he also, when you're worried about the grappling threat, you can get opened up to the striking. So I'm going to give him a slight pass there, but not much. I will say Viacheslav is the better striker. And I feel like in a pure striking match, you have to take him. But he's a big favorite, and he's 1-3-1 in his last 5 fights. So history has shown that he hasn't really looked that good lately. I'll take Viacheslav Borshchev simply because I think this is a striking matchup. By golly, does that number make me want to pick Llontop. So we're going to take Viacheslav. I think Llontop is just going to be outmatched in the striking here. But man, this fight's closer than it may appear. But let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm onto something, maybe I'm not. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Super short notice matchup at featherweight. Francis Marshall steps in on under a week's notice. I believe this was announced on Tuesday. And so Francis Marshall just jumping right into the fire. He hasn't fought in almost exactly 1 year. So we do wonder what he's been doing. I assume, obviously, training getting better. But steps in super short notice. He's taking on Denis Buzukja. Dude's 3-2 in his last 5, much like Francis Marshall. Buzukja kind of saved his career last time, or in the UFC anyway, with that win over Connor Matthews, a common opponent between the two of these fellas. Marshall, you'll notice, fought him on the Contender Series. Now, when we break down the nuts and bolts of this fight, they're very similar fighters in as far as like what they're good at, but different in the way that they go about it. So for Francis Marshall, good wrestler with a solid double leg, decent top control. That's kind of what he needs to do to get guys to, get guys, control them, beat them with the grappling. On the feet, his striking is just kind of decent because it's incredibly unpolished. But what he has in the unpolished striking, he makes up for that with his forward pressure, his power, and his volume. Doesn't have any striking defense really, but he's durable and he can usually eat a shot in order to come forward and just land those powerful, volume-heavy shots. So the striking, I kind of like this kind of style against a guy like Buzukja, so I do like that. I do think he can use this wrestling to some pretty good effect. But the problem is, Buzukja is a good wrestler in his own right. Dude's got powerful takedowns. He can scramble very well. He's got good trips from the clinch. He's a good back taker, and he's going to attack submissions. So for Buzukja, I do think he has some grappling upside as well. In the striking, he's got decent power, decent striker overall, but he's very much kill or be killed. And I think that's why money kind of has come in on Francis Marshall. It's because the kill or be killed style of Buzukja, and knowing how durable a guy like Francis Marshall is, even though it is super short notice, he can come in and just eat shots and throw back. So I do think that is a benefit for him. And I understand that. In the grappling, I think it could be rough. Now, if you realize they're both good wrestlers and both decent strikers, but these things aren't exactly created equal. I would say Francis Marshall's style is better in the striking for this matchup, and I think that the grappling is pretty even. So because of that, I'm going to go with Francis Marshall, even though it's super short notice, big red flag there. I think he's just going to be able to go forward and just land. And even though he's getting probably pieced up early on, I think he's going to be able to take over as the fight goes on, as long as he doesn't gas out. And I think he's going to get it done over Buzukja. So we're going to take Francis Marshall. Let me know what you have in the comments below, and I will see you. Interesting fight at 185 pounds. We have Edmen Shahbazyan taking Gerald Meerschaert here. This is interesting because both guys are 2-3 in their last 5 fights. So both kind of had a rough patch there. Shahbazyan getting beat pretty badly in his last matchup, but is able to pull off the win after getting beat up, pretty convincingly early on, which is rare for him because usually he's the front runner, and then if he doesn't get it done early, he's out of there. But in that fight, he was able to be the one to get beat up and then come back and get the win. So that was a different change for Shahbazyan. He's fighting Gerald Meerschaert, who is pretty much Mr. Third Round. Like, you see this guy show up in the third round, he does fantastic, but before then, he usually is getting beat up on. It's an interesting fight for that reason. Gerald Meerschaert is 36 years old. We have him facing a 26-year-old in Shahbazyan in this one, so big 10-year age gap. Shahbazyan, you think, like, when you think about this guy, you think, man, he's got to be older than 26. I feel like he's been around the UFC for a while. No, he just got to the UFC really young. So a lot of the things that we, kind of give him fault for, I mean, he's just kind of a young kid, like college-age kid coming into the UFC. Not even college age, barely. I mean, right? He was just a youth coming into the UFC, doing what he had to do to, compete at that level, but he just wasn't ready yet. He's stuck around, done well enough to stay in the UFC, and now at 26, maybe we start to see some things get put together. And here he is against a crafty veteran in Meerschaert, but someone who's clearly kind of in the later stages of his career, right? Dude's had a ton of fights. Been rocked a lot. So, I mean, it's an interesting one. That's all I've got to say. It's an interesting one. Gerald Meerschaert, let's break him down. He's definitely the better pure grappler in this matchup, and I don't think that's crazy to say. He's got solid jiu-jitsu with a very large toolbox. Typically, he likes to use this from his back, though. And he's very active from there, and that's good. The dude can lock up a submission in the third round like nobody's business. That is what you do. If you're playing Gerald Meerschaert, you're playing third round. That's what you do. But he's opportunistic, takes advantage of it, but he's willing to stay on his back, and that can be a problem. So even if he is starting to take over in that third round, if he's working from his back, if he doesn't get the finish, he's probably still going to lose the fight. So that's something you got to kind of take into account when you're backing a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, and usually you don't like to do that unless he's a massive, massive underdog. In the striking, it's decent, right? He's not a good striker, but because the grappling threat's there, and because he is still a crafty veteran who's been doing this thing for a while, he can kind of get you a little bit sometimes. He does use his length pretty well. He's kind of a long guy. He's got a decent jab, and he can put together basic boxing combinations. So it's not like he's just completely useless on the feet, but he is definitely going to be outstruck for the majority of the fight by a guy like Edmen Shahbazyan, who is a solid striker with a ton of power. He's got very good kicks, and he can put together combinations of his own. He typically prefers to do a lot of like single strikes or like a couple of strikes at a time, but he will start to put together combinations as he starts to kind of feel it, get that rhythm going, and he'll do a good job with those. He has wrestled in the past, judo background as well, like as far as training goes. I believe he might have competed as a young guy, like a kid, but I could be wrong about that. But he does have like that kind of like, he has the skill set in his back pocket, but in the UFC, it hasn't really shown through very much, right? He's got a good cage push and he has decent takedowns, but realistically, he gets super tired when he starts to do that kind of stuff. And also, it's just, he's a better striker, so he's better off just striking. He does have a good clinch in the open mat, though, and that is something I could see him using here as long as he doesn't get caught in a takedown and then, he's in trouble. Cardio hasn't looked good for him in the past. Maybe that's changing. He did come back and win his last fight after getting beat up a little bit in the first round. So it could be improving. I think we are going to see improvements from Edmen Shahbazyan continuing forward, whereas we're not really going to see that from the Meerschaert side. I do think Meerschaert is very live to win in the third round if it gets that far, because that's just what he does. But ultimately, you have to go Edmen Shahbazyan here. I think he's going to be the better fighter in the first round, probably the second round. That third round, if it gets there, is going to be scary. Ultimately, I think Shahbazyan gets him out of there early, but we're gonna see how this goes. And this might be one of those fights where you just kind of sit back, kick your feet up on the coffee table, crack open a nice cold root beer, and enjoy the fight, because this one's got red flags written all over it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I do appreciate hearing you guys down there. And welterweight's next. And what is a theme to this card? It is that young, up-and-coming prospect taking on that grizzled veteran to get that kind of test to see where they're at in their careers. And that's what we have here. Michael Morales, he's 16-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. That's how undefeated fighters work. But he's 25 years old. And he's taking on a guy in Neil Magny, who's been around the game for a long time. He's 37 years old, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So it's not like this guy's getting beat by everybody. I know a lot of people think that, oh, Neil Magny, as soon as you see him on there, fade him. Well, you would have lost 3 of the last 5 fights for Neil Magny doing that. You can't do that. You got to pick Neil Magny based on the matchup and based on how he's going to go, because he hasn't really looked like he's fallen apart in there. Maybe he's not quite as quick as he used to be. Maybe he's not quite as agile, things like that. But the dude still has the knowledge and the skill set to get things done, even at 37 years old in the welterweight division. So Neil Magny, he's still turning back prospects from time to time. He's not going to get a title run anytime soon, but he still is a dangerous fighter, and you have to take that into account when we break him down. He's a good striker with long, rangy straights. The dude's got a crazy long wingspan. His elbows are very nasty, and he's got a pretty good striking defense on the feet. He's hard to hit because of the length, but also just because he knows what to do, keeps his hands up, does what he needs to do as far as defensively being sound. In the grappling, he's good there as well. He mixes in takedowns well. He's got very good top pressure. He can hold you against the cage for as long as he needs to, and he's got great cardio, so he can do that for as long as he needs to get the win. He's a guy that you really have to be careful when you're fighting him. On the other side, Michael Morales, guy with all the talent in the world, but sometimes has suspect decision-making, right? Good striker, plenty of power, works the jab really well. He's got nasty kicks, but his striking defense is bad, but not because it needs to be. It's just because he chooses to have bad defense. He'll keep the hands low sometimes and just kind of throw these big jabs out here like this and just let you hit him in the face. Not because he's doing the thing where he's like, come on, hit me in the face, and trying to posture, but he just doesn't care to block punches sometimes. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But he's durable, so he can take them, but he's going to make fights closer than they need to be. And he has made fights close in the past. In fact, most of his fights at the UFC level have been closer than they needed to be. Now, in the grappling, dude's got good wrestling. He's got good control. He's extremely hard to hold down if you take him down. And if this guy lets his ground and pound go, he picks his shots really well, but man, does he land hard when he lands. If he's going to come out with the right game plan, he's probably going to use the wrestling to just control Magny and land big, heavy shots when he gets the opportunity. But what he's probably going to do instead is stand on the feet and try to jab with a guy that's going to have a really long wingspan and be hard to hit. And that's not going to go well. Now, he could win that fight. He is the more powerful, youthful guy. But that's going to be tricky. I'm going to take Michael Morales here, obviously, because, this is the surging prospect against the aging veteran. And I think he gets this one done. But at the same time, he's a massive favorite. And we don't know that he's going to come out with the right game plan. In fact, he probably won't. And it might be too little too late by the time he realizes that. And that could be a result where Magny wins this. So it's a close one for me. I know a lot of people are going to say that's stupid. I get that a lot in the comments when it happens, and I've only been wrong 1 of the last 3 weeks on those big underdogs. And I didn't even pick the underdog here. I'm just saying, be cautious on this one, because Neil Magny's upset your parlays before when he beat Mike Mulat in the 3rd round. So we're going to take Michael Morales here, the other Mike, and I think he's going to get it done, but I'm staying away. Let me know what you guys think. We've got the featherweight finale for the Ultimate Fighter. We have Mairon Santos taking on Kaan Ofli. Now, both of these guys have looked really good in different ways on the tough season this year. Ofli's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. pretty solid record, 11-2-1. On the other side, Santos 13-1 on the career, 4-1 in the last 5 fights. Now, obviously, these don't show the Ultimate Fighter stuff because those are considered exhibition bouts, so whatever. But for Kaan Ofli, dude wasn't really looked at as a odds-on favorite to win the show, but here he is in the finals, and he's looked pretty good so far. Good striking, good forward pressure, good volume. Leg kicks have looked great. The problem that it's only a problem sort of, but it can be a problem, is he's willing to just stand and bang, and we saw that in his fight actually prior to the Ultimate Fighter, where he got like dropped and wobbled and shook up multiple times in that fight, but was able just to outdog his opponent and get the submission late in the third, or about midway through the third. But for Ofli, that standing and banging with a guy like Mairon Santos could be a big problem for him. But he does have a grappling advantage once this fight gets to the mat, I would say, because he's very good at taking the back and getting that rear naked choke. In fact, that's kind of what he wants to do in a lot of fights. That rear naked choke is deadly. He can put you to sleep pretty quick. Decent takedowns to get it there. But a lot of times he needs to get to mount first and then get you to turn over. So that's kind of his best back take, and he does a good job with it. So for Kaan Ofli, I think his best game plan is to try to grapple, but I can see him wanting to stand and trade because that's what he kind of does sometimes with a guy like Mairon Santos, and that's a problem because Mairon Santos, dude's a solid striker. He picks his shots very well. He's really good at controlling the range, dynamic attack. He'll feint to set things up. Got a heavy leg kick, and he works the teeps really well. And I think those teeps, because Santos is going to be the taller, longer guy, I think those teeps are going to be good for keeping Ofli at complete, long range distance. And then he's going to be able to land his big shots. He doesn't really put everything together in like a combination per se, but he'll land a shot and then see where the next one's at, and then see where the next one's at. Just not really just like a fluid combination, but he's picking those shots and he's putting them together, sort of, if that makes any sense. I don't know, whatever. He's got a good clinch with some really good knees, but the problem is he seems like he can get out-muscled in the clinch by these shorter, stockier guys, and I think Ofli actually could out-muscle him in the clinch, so I do think Santos is going to want to avoid that, because if he gets pushed up against the cage, that's a problem for him, because he's shown good takedown defense in space by using his sprawl to good success, but not so good against the cage. So if he ends up going to the clinch and then, starts trying to work his knees but gets muscled up against the fence, that's going to be a problem for him. Ultimately, though, I do think at range he's going to be better, and I think the shots that Ofli's eaten on the regional scene that he's been wobbled from, if he eats those same shots from a guy like Mairon Santos, I think he's going down. So we're taking Mairon Santos here to get the win. He's a big dude for 145. He hits pretty hard. He's got the better striking skills, and I think that's where this is going to be. So let me know what you think, though. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And an Ultimate Fighter finale matchup here for the middleweights. Ryan Loder takes on Robert Valentin. And I'm going to tell you now, I am one of those people that still watches The Ultimate Fighter. I know a lot of people are going to sit up here and say, yeah, I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter. I'm too cool for that, whatever. It doesn't help you with your breakdowns, guys. Just watch The Ultimate Fighter. Even if you just skip to the fights, it's going to help you. Even then, you want to kind of see what's going on. Because you can see stuff in the training room, even though they don't show a ton of footage. You can see little things that maybe help you out along the way with your breakdowns. Not so much in this fight, but you kind of have to grab a few things there, especially for Robert Valentin, who's been a finisher on The Ultimate Fighter. So if you didn't watch the stuff pre-Tough, you didn't get a lot. But also, if you didn't watch on Tough, you might not know that the dude can just put guys out with one shot. So there is that. So when we break this fight down, both guys, 4 wins in their last 5. For Loder, he's got 1 loss in there. It was a split decision. It was his only loss in his career. Close fight. For Valentin, dude's 4-0 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. When I look at Loder as a career, like he's got 7 professional fights, that 1 loss being the split decision. Recently, he's got a win over Luan Davis. I believe he took his O there, and that's a pretty good regional win, so that's something you like to see. Pretty much dominated that fight, too. When you look at Valentin, obviously he's got more fights. He's got 13 professional, 14, I guess, because of the no contest, and it doesn't show up on the main record, but 14 pro fights. The guy's been around a little bit longer, and he's got a more balanced game. So let's break that down. Valentin, good striker. We know he's got the power. His kicks are pretty nice. Dynamic attack. He'll mix in the elbows, mix in the knees, mix in the punches and kicks, all that good stuff. But he doesn't respond well to heavy pressure. That's something that you didn't see it in The Ultimate Fighter, but you did see it pre-Ultimate Fighter on the regional scene. He does not like that heavy pressure, and that does cause him problems. He's got good grappling. Now, this is something you might not notice, is that he's a bit of a rear naked choke specialist. This guy loves to take the back, and when he does, that dude locks that choke in, because If you look at his career wins, like a lot of them are rear naked chokes. Like I don't have the number off the top of my head, but a lot of them are rear naked chokes. And when I was watching his regional footage, it felt like it was just RNC after RNC. You know what I mean? Good sweeps from the bottom, works his elbows well in the ground and pound. But in his losses, typically what we see is he gets taken down a lot and controlled, and that is something that's going to be a problem for him because he's fighting a guy in Ryan Loder, solid wrestler, and when he's winning fights, he's getting his wrestling going, and that's what he does. He's got good takedowns, good entries on the takedowns, and he can chain wrestle with the best of them at 185 pounds. That's a good thing to have because at 185, there's not a lot of guys that can fight off that heavy wrestling style. Good control. His ground and pound's pretty gosh darn heavy, and I think that's something that sets him apart from other chain wrestling style fighters, is that he will open up with that ground and pound and land heavy shots. Decent striking. The forward pressure's there, and the wrestling threat sets things up. He's also got a pretty decent body kick that he can throw willy-nilly because he's not super worried about you trying to catch the leg and take him down because he knows he's going to be able to create the scramble and get back on top. I know everybody's on Robert Valentin, and you can tell that because the line is moving like crazy. But like I said, we've seen Valentin taken down, and in the fights that he does lose, that's what's happening to him. I think Ryan Loder's the guy to do it. Ryan Loder's probably going to get the takedowns. He's going to land some decent ground and pound. I think he's going to take this fight and control this fight most of the time. He might have a couple of moments of adversity, but I think Ryan Loder is the guy that's going to be winning most of the minutes. And I think he's going to do damage. People won't think so because he's a wrestler, and they think, oh, wrestlers don't do damage. But it's just plain wrong. Some do, some don't. And you got to look at each individual style, each individual matchup. Ryan Loder's probably getting it done, at least by my estimations. He's going to be a pretty big underdog come fight day. So if you're going to bet it, you might as well give it a day or two, unless this video somehow gets people to bet him. But I'm taking Ryan Loder. Let me know what you think. I'm sure it's Robert Valentin, so you can drop that in the comments and tell me I'm stupid, but let's see what you got. Another matchup where it's grizzled veteran takes on young up-and-coming prospect. We have Tabatha Ricci being the young up-and-comer at 29 years old. She's taken on the grizzled veteran in Angela Hill, who's been around the UFC for pretty much her entire career at 39 years old. And her record kind of reflects that, right? It's been about 500 for a long time. But recently, I'm saying this to be honest, recently, she's actually started to break away from that around 500 record for Angela Hill, which is crazy because she's 39 years old. But here's the deal that I've been trying to tell you guys, and you keep telling me I'm wrong, and I'm telling you I'm right. Women age better than men, especially in MMA. It actually just in everything, to be honest. Like women outlive men. The life expectancy is longer. In MMA, their career expectancy should be longer. The only reason it's not is because, you get those that decide to go start a family and, have babies and can't really fight when you're pregnant. That's a thing. But the deal is they have more longevity in their career if they want to. Angela Hill does not look the same at 39 as someone who is 39 as a male fighter. And even around the same way, say like a flyweight male at 39, he's been washed for years. Angela Hill, a strawweight female at 39, she's still got miles on the tank, you know what I mean? That's how that works. For whatever reason, women's fighters last longer in MMA. I don't know what it is, but it's true. So you can argue with me on it if you want. It's been that way. That's why we keep seeing these older women fighters still able to put on good performances. Now, soapbox out of the way. Both of these ladies are 4-1 in their last 5 fights. That's interesting. That is very interesting because, like I said, 10-year age gap, and typically you're going to see someone who is, at 39 not being 4-1 in their last 5 in the UFC. So let's break this down. For Tabatha Ricci, she is a very solid grappler, right? That's where she needs to get this fight, to the mat. She has good takedowns against the cage. Getting it there can be a trouble against someone like Angela Hill. Her open mat takedowns aren't good enough for her to really just get them over somebody who has good movement and takedown defense. So that could be a problem. But her takedowns against the cage, if she can get it there, she's got the takedown. She's got good top pressure and a very large toolbox when it gets to the mat. She can look for submissions. She can, advance her position, do what she needs to do there. But she has to get this fight to the mat because on the feet, although she's decent, she's got good volume. She's, got good basic boxing combinations. Nothing crazy, but she can put together a decent combo. She's good there. It's just she's going to be outmatched by Angela Hill on the feet. But she will strike in flurries, and she'll use that to get her opponent to back up to the cage because she's going to close that distance. And then just once she gets into the cage, push, legs, bring down. That's her plan. She starts quick, and that can be an advantage for her because this is a 3-round fight, and Angela Hill has started slow in the past. She's worked on fixing that lately, and that's been good for her. But we know that Ricci's going to start fast in every one of her fights, and I do like a few things here, and especially those takedowns against the cage. However, she's fighting Angela Hill. Angela Hill's a very good striker. She doesn't have enough power to really hurt opponents typically. It can happen, but She's got to land just the right shot. She doesn't have that power that if it's off even by the slightest bit, can do what she needs it to do. It has to be pinpoint accuracy. Her power has lacked in the past, and it's just something that happens for her. She gives up power for all the other things, like the movement, the cardio, things like that. So that's what it is. Solid striker, very good movement, very good volume, and her combinations are very pretty. She's going to have to use that movement to avoid getting it against the cage, and I think if she does, she's going to have a lot of success on the feet. In the grappling department, her takedown defense has improved a ton as of late, and she's very active off of her back when she does get taken down, and she'll use it to either create space or start looking for, like a scramble or like a sweep or something like that. Her best bet in this is going to be make space, get back to her feet, and I think she knows that. She's smart enough as a fighter to do that, so I do think that she's going to have to rely on her takedown defense and her movement to stay away from Ricci and then landing her own volume. Her cardio is fantastic. If this was a 5-round fight, the pick would be Angela Hill without any question whatsoever, because I know that in rounds 4 and 5, this woman would be picking up that pace and picking up that volume, and Ricci would be in trouble. However, this is a 3-round fight, and that makes it tricky because Hill has started slow in the past. Yes, she's done a lot better lately at not doing that, but she has started slow in the past. 3 rounds, it's pretty easy to, lose one by getting taken down against the cage, and then now all of a sudden you're in a bad spot. So I do still lean Angela Hill. I understand she's 39. I think it's going to be tough for Ricci to get her up against the cage. I think it's going to be tough for her to get the takedowns. But at the same time, here's the deal. It's going to go to decision most likely. And when it does, we've seen Ricci get decisions that were pretty close. We've seen Angela Hill never get a decision that's close whatsoever. And sometimes even when it's not close, still not get the decision. Yeah, that's tough. But we're going to go Angela Hill because we're just breaking down the skills. And if I get this pick wrong due to some horrible robbery decision, yeah, you can talk smack in the comments all you want. It's fine. Whatever. I'll know how it went. But realistically, Ricci does have a serious path to victory here. She could get this win. I'm going to take Angela Hill, though. I'm going to take the veteran to give the vet lesson here. But let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'll see you in the next fight. Folks, here we are at the main event of the evening. So this would be a last reminder to like this video. It does help me a lot, helps the channel a lot. I do appreciate it very much. Also, thank you guys once again, for helping 138 MMA as a whole get over that 3,000 subscriber mark. It's huge. It's big. Realistically, once you hit 1,000 subscribers, the subscriber count really doesn't matter all that much. As far as the YouTube monetary system goes, it doesn't really matter that much. But what it does mean to me as a creator is that you guys actually care about my content enough to keep me on that little bookmark, basically, that you have on YouTube. So that I do appreciate. So subscribers, thank you guys so much. And speaking of subscribers, I know I'm talking a little bit too much. Just bear with me. The slide before this one, that showed the friend tier and above Patreon members, you guys have subscribed to that and put your money where your mouth is and supported the channel that way. And I do appreciate the heck out of you guys for that. Those folks, we have a good chat over there. Been cashing some bets together. We've been loving that. So I do appreciate you guys. And if you aren't on that, that's okay. Just subscribing to this channel is fantastic. It means a lot. But if you do want to do that over on patreon.com/138MMA and join the folks on the slide before, there you go. It's an ultimate opportunity for you to engage with me in the one-on-one chats, see exactly what bets I'm placing, get to dive deep into my notes, things like that. Our Patreon parlay is always a fun time. But like I said, if you just want to watch the videos, get my takes from that, more power to you. I don't blame you a bit. Let's break down this main event. I absolutely love this main event. It's a really big matchup as far as the division is concerned, right? There's the top of 185 pounds is stacked right now with contenders. And we don't really, we know that Strickland is supposed to be the next in line based on what Dana White said. But what we don't know is really what the hierarchy is, right? We've got a lot of contenders that all really have a viable claim. Brendan Allen being a guy that's totally looked over in that. The dude's got a legitimate claim for a title shot soon, and I don't know why nobody's even talking about him because, dude's been winning, right? We've got, obviously Caio versus Jared Cannonier here, and the winner of this could be right up there because, sure, Cannonier lost in his last fight to Nasruddin Imavov, but it was kind of a weird end to the fight. They were pretty well, evenly matched, and then the stoppage kind of came a little bit early, so there is that. But this fight could get Cannonier right back in the running. It could also propel Caio clear up to that top spot where it's maybe not number one contender, but what happens next? There's just a lot of contenders at 185 pounds, so this is a crucial matchup as far as that goes. we've got a couple of guys, one who's been there a while. Gerald Cannonier being 40 years old. He's getting up there in age. He doesn't have a ton of miles on the career in a way that you think of somebody that's 40. Yeah, he's got a decent amount of fights, but he's 40 years old. So he doesn't have nearly as many as you'd expect for being 40. On the other side, Caio is 31 years old. Dude's got a crazy good record, 16-1. He hasn't lost a fight in ages. I think like his second fight as a pro was his only loss, and that was a while ago. So he's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We're looking at 3-2 for Cannonier. Both of these guys have had, a pretty good amount of momentum. The problem for Borralho is sometimes he doesn't fight as often as you'd like to see for him to really get, that's that guy, like in the eyes of the fans, like, oh, that's that guy, right? And then he ends up, sure, he's getting a main event here, but it is an Apex main event. Thankfully for him, there's a little bit of extra shine because it is at the as the Ultimate Fighter finale. I know that doesn't help a lot anymore, but it's something. But let's get to the nuts and bolts. I've talked a lot in this breakdown here. Caio Borralho, dude's a solid grappler. He's got good takedowns and good trips. He doesn't shoot a ton of takedowns, but when he does, he typically hits them. But he picks his spots really well. When he gets the fight to the mat, he's got excellent control. He's very good at staying on top or taking the back and staying there. When he takes the back, you're not getting this guy off of your back. He has excellent sweeps as well. He ends up on bottom. Dude's getting right on top or taking the back. That's what he does. His grappling control, this here, is definitely his best attribute. That is the weapon that I think he should use in this matchup to win this fight early on. As the fight drags, it's going to be a 5-round fight, obviously. As the fight drags, he can start changing up, working for some different stuff. But early on, this is what he needs to do to bank a few rounds in order to secure that win on the scorecards come the end of the 5th round, at least in my opinion. Sure, could he win a different way? Yeah, but that would be the easiest path to victory for him. He has pretty good striking as well, right? It's not, it's definitely not his primary skill set, but he definitely is good in the striking. He's got good control over the range. He counter strikes very well, and he's got good rangy straight punches. But when he's fighting a guy like Gerald Cannonier, he doesn't want to spend as much time here because Gerald Cannonier, this dude is a very good striker. He's solid in his abilities, but he caters his game plan to who he's fighting as far as his striking skill set, right? Dude's got plenty of power. That's every fight. Good leg kicks. Pretty good striking defense as well. But he's patient. However, he has the ability to really turn up and put a high-volume performance on. And that's not something you see mostly from patient guys. Because a lot of times you see this. When I put patient on the board, right under it's a negative, not a positive, saying can also lead to inactivity. You don't get that from Gerald Cannonier. He's picking his spots when he's patient. And when he does need to turn it up, I'm pretty sure this dude has the record in the UFC for the most significant strikes landed in an MMA fight at middleweight. The dude definitely, I think it was Vittori he set the record on, right? Am I right about that? Let me know in the comments if I'm right about that. I just pulled that off the top of my head. So, but I'm pretty sure he has that record. And you don't get that record by being a low volume, patient, stand there, not do enough type of stuff. Like he's getting out there and putting the volume on, but he's also patient and picks his spots and puts the volume out when he needs to or when it's the right time. In the grappling, we don't really see him grapple offensively very often. Now, can he do it? Sure, he's an MMA fighter, but that's not typically his game plan, and I think it'd be silly to be his game plan in this fight. He doesn't have the best takedown defense. It's not terrible, but it's not the best. But he does work to get back to his feet, and he has very good submission defense. So I do think he's able to stay safe on the mat if he's taken down, and I do think he's going to be able to put the effort in to get back to his feet. Now, this will be a test, though, because he's going up against a guy with very good control. So when these two meet, it's going to be interesting to see whether the get-up ability from Gerald Cannonier wins out or the grappling control of Caio Borralho. Ultimately, for me, when I'm looking at this fight to make a pick, there's a couple of things I'm looking for. The number one thing I'm looking for is a smart game plan, and we know that Caio Borralho is going to have that. And because of that, because of the youth, because of the ability to get the fight to the mat and control and win a ton of minutes doing that, I'm going to take Caio Borralho. However, the conspiracy that the UFC is telling fighters to stop wrestling and stop grappling because all they want to see is a bunch of people go out there and strike, and for whatever reason, it's MMA, not Muay Thai, but they want to see a Muay Thai fight in MMA gloves. One Championships is doing that, but I'm not here to watch that. I'm here to watch MMA. But the UFC seems, I don't know if they're actually, it's allegedly they're saying that to people. If they are saying that, that could really change this fight. But we're going to assume that that's not the case. We're going to assume that this fight is going to play out the way that it's going to play out based on each camp's game plan. And because of that, I'm going to take Caio Borralho. I apologize. This one took a little bit longer. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you check out the Dana White's Contender Series content that's coming up very soon. We crushed it last week. We went 4-1. We took an underdog shot in the main event. Landed a couple of big shots, but he wasn't able to get it done. We hit the other 4. It might be the Contender Series year where we just have to pick all favorites. I don't know, but it's worked so far. So let me know what you guys think about this fight in the comments below, and I'll see you next.